The old transport ship Kethra's Hope drifted through the cold darkness of space like a dying whale. Its metal hull was covered with dents and burn marks from years of running from one place to another. Inside the cramped corridors, the lights flickered on and off, and strange sounds came from the broken walls. Nera walked slowly through the main hallway, her bare feet making soft sounds on the cold metal floor. Her skin looked like it was made of tiny blue crystals that caught what little light there was. She was tall and thin, with large purple eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. Around her head, the air seemed to shimmer like heat waves on a hot day. She stopped at a small window and looked out at the stars. Far away, she could see the bright lights of another space station. It looked warm and safe, full of life and hope. But she knew they would not be welcome there. They were never welcome anywhere. "Captain Nera," came a tired voice behind her. She turned to see Voss, the ship's engineer. He was older than her, with gray skin and tired eyes. His hands were always dirty from trying to fix their broken ship with spare parts and hope. Like all their people, the air around him seemed to move and dance with invisible energy. "Another station has said no to us," Voss said sadly. "They won't even let us buy fuel or food." Nera felt her heart grow heavy. She had heard these words so many times before. Every space station, every planet, every trading post in the galaxy had the same answer for the Zephyrians: go away. "How many does that make this month?" she asked. 15, Voss replied. 15 stations that turned us away without even listening. Behind them, other Zephyrians moved through the hallways like ghosts. There were only 43 of them left on the ship. Once, their people had numbered in the millions. They had lived on a beautiful blue planet with crystal cities and singing rivers. But that was before the Galactic Council decided they were dangerous. The Council said that Zephyrians were cursed. They said that being near them made other aliens feel sick and afraid. They said their psychic energy was like a disease that could spread. So they made laws. No Zephyrian could live on Council worlds. No Zephyrian could work in Council space. No Zephyrian could even stop for supplies. Nera remembered when the Council ships came to their homeworld. They did not attack with weapons. They did something worse. They put up a barrier around the whole planet, trapping everyone inside. Those who were already in space, like Nera and her people, became refugees with nowhere to go. "Captain," said a young voice. Nera looked down to see Kale, barely more than a child. His crystal skin was pale from not enough food, and his purple eyes were too big for his thin face. The psychic energy around him was weak and flickering. "Are we going to find a home soon?" he asked in the hopeful way that only children can. Nera knelt down and put her hand on his shoulder. She wanted to lie and tell him yes. She wanted to promise him warm beds and good food and a place where they could walk under an open sky. But she had made too many promises like that already. "I don't know, little one," she said softly. "But I promise we will keep looking." The ship shook suddenly, and the lights went out completely. In the darkness, Nera could hear the sound of the engines stopping. The steady hum that had been with them for years was gone. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red. Voss was already running toward the engine room, but Nera knew what he would find. Their old ship had finally given up. "Everyone to the main hall," Nera called out. Her voice carried through the ship using her psychic abilities, reaching every person without her having to shout. The Zephyrians gathered in their largest room, which was not very large at all. Families held each other close. The older ones sat quietly, as if they had been expecting this day. The children looked scared but tried to be brave. "Our engines have stopped," Nera told them. "Voss is checking, but I think this time they cannot be fixed." No one cried or screamed. They had been through too much for that. They just sat in silence, thinking about what would happen next. "We have sent out a distress signal," Nera continued. "Maybe someone will help us." But even as she said it, she did not believe it. Who would help the cursed ones? Who would risk the anger of the Galactic Council to save 43 Zephyrians floating in space? Old Myra, who had been a teacher back on their homeworld, spoke up. "At least we are together," she said. "At least we do not die alone." The others nodded. It was not much comfort, but it was something. Outside their dying ship, the stars continued to shine, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, billions of creatures lived their lives in warm homes on safe planets. But for the Zephyrians aboard the Kethra's Hope, there was only the growing cold and the silence of broken engines. Nera closed her eyes and sent out one last psychic call into the darkness, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, might hear them and care enough to help. Captain Li Huan stood on the bridge of his ship New Dawn, looking at the blinking red dot on his screen. His dark eyes studied the signal carefully. It was weak and getting weaker, like a dying heartbeat in the darkness of space. "Sir, we have picked up a distress call," said Park Mina, his communications officer. She was young with short black hair and quick fingers that danced over her control panel. "But sir, it is from a Zephyrian ship." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The Galactic Council had made it very clear that helping Zephyrians was not allowed. It could mean big trouble for humans who were just starting to find their place among the stars. "How far away are they?" Juan asked. 2 hours at full speed, sir," replied his pilot, Kim Day. He was a thin man with nervous hands who always did exactly what he was told. Juan looked around at his crew. Some of them seemed worried. Others looked away from him. They all knew the rules about Zephyrians. They all knew what could happen if they helped. "Sir," Mina said quietly, "the council warnings say they are dangerous. That being near them makes you sick and crazy." Juan nodded slowly. He had read the same warnings. But he had also read other things. Old reports from explorers who met Zephyrians before the council made their decision. Those reports told a different story. "Set course for their location," he ordered. Kim Day's hands stopped moving over his controls. "Sir? Are you sure?" "They are people in trouble," Juan said simply. "That is enough for me." The New Dawn was not a big ship, but it was fast and well built. It carried 30 humans who were exploring the far edges of space, looking for new worlds and new friends. Captain Juan was proud of his crew, but now he wondered if they would follow him into possible danger. 2 hours later, they found the Zephyrian ship floating dead in space. It was old and broken, with holes in its side and no lights in its windows. It looked like it had been through many battles and lost them all. "Life signs?" Juan asked. Dr. Kim Soo, the ship's doctor, checked her readings. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands. 43 beings, sir. All alive but some are very weak." "Bring them aboard," Juan ordered. His crew looked at each other with worry, but they did what he said. That was why he was proud of them. Even when they were scared, they still did the right thing. The docking bay doors opened with a loud sound that echoed through the ship. Slowly, carefully, the Zephyrians floated across from their broken ship to the human vessel. They moved like people who expected to be hurt, ready to run or hide at the first sign of danger. Nera was the first to step onto the human ship. Her blue crystal skin caught the bright lights of the docking bay, making small rainbows dance across the walls. The air around her seemed to move and shimmer with the psychic energy that made other aliens afraid. She waited for the humans to step back in fear or pain. She waited for them to cover their faces and tell her people to leave. But instead, Captain Juan walked forward with his hand extended in greeting. "Welcome aboard the New Dawn," he said in careful galactic standard. "I am Captain Li Huan." Nera stared at him in surprise. She could feel her psychic energy touching his mind, but he did not seem hurt by it. He looked a little tired, maybe had a small headache, but that was all. This had never happened before with other species. You are not in pain?" she asked carefully. Juan smiled. "I have felt worse after drinking too much coffee." Behind Nera, the other Zephyrians began to come aboard. There was old Voss with his tired eyes and dirty hands. There was young Kale who looked around with wonder at the clean, bright ship. There was Myra the teacher who helped the weak ones walk. Dr. Kim Soo came forward with her medical bag. She looked at the Zephyrians with interest, not fear. "Some of you look hurt or sick," she said kindly. "Will you let me help you?" The Zephyrians could not believe what they were seeing. 4 years, they had been turned away from every place they asked for help. Now these humans were offering medical care and shelter without asking for anything in return. "Why are you helping us?" Nera asked Captain Juan. "Do you not know what your council says about my people?" Juan looked at her with his steady dark eyes. "I know what they say. But I also know that right now, you need help and we can give it. That seems more important than what some politicians decided in a meeting room far away." Engineer Choi Jun, a stocky man with strong hands, was already looking at readings from the Zephyrian ship. "Your engines are completely dead," he told Voss. "But I can fix them. Give me a day or two." Voss felt tears in his old eyes. It had been so long since anyone offered to help them with kindness instead of demanding payment they could not afford. As the Zephyrians settled into the warm, safe human ship, Nera felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt hope. The message came 3 days after Captain Juan had helped the Zephyrians. Park Mina's face went white as she read the transmission from Earth Command. Her hands shook as she handed the datapad to her captain. "Sir, you need to see this," she said quietly. Juan read the message twice before he fully understood what it meant. The Galactic Council had found out about their rescue of the Zephyrians. They were very angry. Earth's trading agreements were being cancelled. Human ships were no longer welcome at many space stations. And Captain Li Huan was ordered to return to Earth immediately for a military trial. "How bad is it?" asked Dr. Kim Su, who had been taking care of the Zephyrian refugees for the past few days. "Bad," Huan replied simply. "Earth Command is scared. They think helping the Zephyrians will destroy all the progress humans have made in joining the galactic community." In the ship's guest quarters, Nira felt the change in the humans' emotions. Their psychic energy had become heavy with worry and fear. She found Captain Huan standing alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "This is our fault," she said sadly. "We brought trouble to your people." Huan did not look away from the stars. "No. I brought trouble to my people. I made the choice to help you. But you will be punished for helping us," Nira said. "Your leaders are angry with you." "Yes, they are. Then you should leave us somewhere safe and go back to them. Tell them we forced you to help us. Tell them we used our psychic powers to make you do it." Now Huan turned to look at her. His dark eyes were calm and steady. "Would you really want me to lie?" Nira was quiet for a long moment. "No," she said finally. "But I do not want you to suffer because you were kind to us." 2 weeks later, Captain Huan stood in a cold, white courtroom on Earth. Behind a long table sat 5 military judges in their dark blue uniforms. At the center was Admiral Yang Suk, a man with gray hair and hard eyes who had never liked taking risks. "Captain Li Huan," the admiral said in a voice like ice, "you are charged with disobeying direct orders from the Galactic Council. You gave aid to beings that the Council has declared dangerous. Because of your actions, humanity has lost 3 major trading agreements and been banned from 12 space stations." Huan stood straight and proud. He did not try to make excuses. "Yes, sir. I helped them." "Do you understand what your actions have cost us?" Admiral Yang demanded. "We worked for 50 years to gain respect in the galaxy. Now, because you decided to play hero, we are being treated like troublemakers." "Sir, they were dying. Their ship was broken and they had nowhere to go." "That was not our problem, Captain." "I believe it was, sir." The Admiral's face grew red with anger. "Captain, you put your personal feelings above the good of humanity. That is not acceptable for an officer in this fleet." While Captain Huan faced his trial on Earth, the Zephyrians had found a temporary home on a human mining colony called New Sejong. The colony was on the edge of human space, far from the main shipping routes and government offices. Foreman Bae Hyun was a practical man who cared more about getting work done than following political rules. When the refugee ship arrived asking for shelter, he looked at the 43 tired, hungry Zephyrians and made a simple decision. "Can you work?" he asked Nira. "Yes," she replied. "Then you can stay." The other miners were nervous at first. They had heard the stories about Zephyrians being dangerous and cursed. But after working beside them for a few days, they began to change their minds. Voss turned out to be excellent at fixing broken mining equipment. His years of keeping the Kethra's Hope running with spare parts made him very good at creative solutions. Young Kale had sharp eyes that could spot dangerous cracks in tunnel walls before they became cave-ins. Old Myra helped teach the human children, sharing stories and knowledge from her homeworld. "They are good people," Bae Hyun told his wife, Dr. Lim Hannah, as they sat in their small home after a long day of work. Dr. Lim had been studying the Zephyrians with great interest. Unlike other species, humans did not seem to be hurt by their psychic energy. "I think the Council made a mistake about them," she said. "Their abilities are not dangerous. They are actually quite useful." "Useful how?" "Nira can sense when someone is lying or when they are sick before they know it themselves. Kale predicted that tunnel collapse yesterday, saving 3 miners. Even their emotions seem to help calm people down when they are stressed." Back on Earth, Captain Huan's trial was ending. The judges had made their decision. Admiral Yang stood to read the sentence. "Captain Li Huan, this court finds you guilty of disobeying orders and endangering human diplomatic relations. You are stripped of your rank and dismissed from the fleet." Huan accepted the punishment without complaining. As he walked out of the courtroom, he thought about the Zephyrians and hoped they had found somewhere safe to live. He did not know that his act of kindness would soon save the entire galaxy. Dr. Kim sat in her small laboratory on New Sejong Colony, looking at data that made no sense. For 3 months, she had been studying the Zephyrians who lived and worked alongside the human miners. What she found was not what the Galactic Council had told everyone. Nira, look at this, she said, pointing to her computer screen. Your psychic energy does not hurt people. It warns them. Nira leaned over the doctor's shoulder to see the strange patterns on the screen. The blue crystal woman had become friends with Dr. Lim during their time on the mining colony. Warns them about what? I am not sure yet. But every time your people feel danger, your psychic energy gets stronger. Like your minds are trying to tell everyone around you to be careful. In another part of the colony, former Captain Huan was working in the deep mines with Voss and the other miners. He had come to New Sejong after his trial, having nowhere else to go. The colony welcomed him, and he found peace in the simple work of digging tunnels and finding rare metals. Something is wrong, Kale said suddenly. The young Zephyrian stopped walking and put his hand against the tunnel wall. His purple eyes went wide with fear. What is it? Huan asked. Something bad is coming. Something that eats thoughts. The other miners laughed, thinking the boy was just being scared. But Voss looked worried. Kale has never been wrong about danger before, he said quietly. That same day, reports started coming in from across the galaxy. On the planet Calarian Prime, the entire population had stopped talking to each other. They walked around like robots, doing their work but never laughing or crying or showing any feelings. On the space station Deep Harbor, the same thing happened. Thousands of aliens went about their daily tasks, but their eyes were empty and cold. They looked like living people, but something important was missing from inside them. Dr. Lim studied these reports with growing fear. It is happening to all the council species, she told her husband. But not to humans or Zephyrians. Back in her laboratory, Dr. Kim Soo was making a terrible discovery. She had been reading old Zephyrian books that Myra had saved from their homeworld. The books were written in the crystal script of their people, and Nira had been helping her translate them. The void touched, Nira read from an ancient page. Her voice was full of old fear. Creatures from the dark spaces between stars. They have no bodies, but they can enter minds and eat the thoughts inside. Dr. Kim felt her blood turn cold. When did your people first encounter these things? Long ago, before we had space travel. They came to our world and began taking over our people's minds. But some of us could sense them coming. Our psychic abilities let us feel their presence and warn others. That is why your people developed psychic powers, Dr. Kim realized. To protect yourselves from these creatures. Yes. And to protect others too. But the other species in the galaxy do not understand. They think our warnings feel bad, so they avoid us. The reports from across the galaxy were getting worse. Entire star systems were going quiet. Ships arrived at planets to find populations that looked normal but acted like empty shells. The Galactic Council was calling it a plague, but no medicine could cure it. On New Sejong, the humans and Zephyrians watched the news with growing horror. Foreman BAE called everyone to the main meeting hall. His face was serious as he stood before the mixed crowd of humans and crystal-skinned refugees. The council is asking all species to stay away from each other until they find a cure for this plague, he announced. But I do not think this is a normal sickness. Young Kale stood up from where he sat with the other children. It is not a plague, he said in his small but clear voice. It is the void touched. They are spreading through the galaxy, eating minds. How do you know this? BAE asked gently. Because I can feel them, Kale replied. They are like cold, empty holes in space. They cannot take human minds because human thoughts are too messy and fast. They cannot take Zephyrian minds because we can see them coming. Dr. Lim stepped forward. That explains why humans are not affected. Our brains work differently from other species. We have too many emotions and random thoughts. The parasites cannot hold on to minds like ours. Former Captain Huan listened to all this with growing understanding. So the Zephyrians were never cursed, he said slowly. They were the galaxy's early warning system. Their psychic abilities were trying to protect everyone from these void-touched creatures. Nira nodded sadly. For thousands of years, my people tried to warn others about the danger. But instead of listening, they made us outcasts. They silenced the very people who could have protected them. As if to prove her point, another message came in from the outer colonies. 3 more worlds had gone completely silent. The void-touched were spreading faster than anyone could stop them. But on New Sejong colony, humans and Zephyrians worked together, planning how to fight back against an enemy that fed on minds and turned living beings into empty shells. They were perhaps the only ones in the galaxy who understood what they were really facing. And they were running out of time. The emergency message came to New Sejong colony in the middle of the night. Park Mina, who had followed her former captain to the mining world, received the transmission with shaking hands. It was from Admiral Yang Suk himself. "Please," the Admiral's voice was desperate, very different from the cold man who had put Captain Huan on trial. "We need your help. Half the galaxy has gone silent. We were wrong about the Zephyrians. We were wrong about everything." Former Captain Huan stood in the communication room, listening to the man who had destroyed his military career now begging for his help. Around him, the mixed community of humans and Zephyrians gathered to hear the message. "The Council species are falling one by one," the Admiral continued. "But humans and Zephyrians seem to be immune. We need you to come back, Captain. We need to learn how to fight these things." Nera placed her crystal hand on Huan's shoulder. "It is your choice," she said softly. "You do not owe them anything after what they did to you." Huan looked around at the faces of his friends, human miners who had welcomed him, Zephyrian refugees who had become family. Young Kale stood nearby, his purple eyes bright with hope. "We have to help them," the boy said. "Even if they were mean to us before." "The child is right," said old Myra. "We cannot let fear and anger stop us from doing what is right." Within days, ships began arriving at New Sejong. Not just human vessels, but also the few council ships whose crews had not yet been taken by the void touched. They came seeking the knowledge that the mining colony had discovered through months of working together. Dr. Kim Soo and Dr. Lim set up training programs, teaching other humans how to work with Zephyrians. "You must not fear their psychic energy," Dr. Kim explained to a group of nervous human soldiers. "That energy is what will save us all." The Zephyrians shared their ancient knowledge freely, despite years of being treated badly by the galaxy. Nera worked with human scientists to create detection equipment that could sense void-touched presence. Voss helped build new weapons that could disrupt the creature's hold on infected minds. Captain Huan, given back his rank by a desperate Earth command, led the first joint mission to a world called Haven Point. The planet had gone silent 2 weeks earlier, but satellite images showed people still moving around in the cities. "Remember," Huan told his mixed team of humans and Zephyrians as their ship approached the planet, "the void-touched look like normal people on the outside. Only our Zephyrian friends can tell us who is really still free." They landed in the main city to find thousands of people walking through the streets. But something was terribly wrong. No one spoke. No one showed any emotion. They moved like machines programmed to look human. Kale, now part of the mission team despite his young age, pointed to a group of school children walking in perfect lines. "They are all empty inside," he whispered. "The creatures ate their thoughts." But as the team moved deeper into the city, Nera suddenly stopped. "Wait," she said, her psychic energy growing stronger. "There are free minds in that building. Hiding in the basement." They found 30 survivors huddled in an underground shelter, aliens from different species who had somehow escaped infection. They were terrified and had been hiding for days. "How did you avoid being taken?" Dr. Lim asked them. An old Kalarian woman spoke up with a shaky voice. "There was a Zephyrian trader in our city when it started. She told us to hide and gave us these." The woman held up a small crystal device. "She said it would protect our minds." Nera examined the device and smiled sadly. "These are mind shields made by my people. This trader sacrificed herself to save you." The mission to Haven Point was just the beginning. Teams of humans and Zephyrians began traveling to world after world, fighting the void-touched and freeing infected minds. It was dangerous work. The creatures could jump from body to body, and they fought hard to keep their victims. Engineer Choi Jun developed special ships with Zephyrian crystal technology built into their hulls. These vessels could travel through space without being detected by the void-touched. "The crystals hide our thoughts," he explained. "The creatures cannot sense us coming." Foreman BAE and his miners became teachers, showing others how humans and Zephyrians could work together. "Trust is everything," he said. "When we trust each other, we are stronger than any enemy." The war against the void-touched lasted 2 years. Slowly, world by world, the galaxy was freed from the creature's control. The partnership between humans and Zephyrians proved to be exactly what was needed: human determination and adaptability combined with Zephyrian psychic awareness and ancient wisdom. In the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers, now on a new world that welcomed all species equally, Captain Li Huan stood beside Nera. She wore the robes of First Guardian, a new position created to honor those who protect others from psychic threats. "The galaxy owes both your species a great debt," said the new council speaker. "Humans showed us that compassion is more important than fear. Zephyrians showed us that being different does not mean being dangerous." Young Kale, now grown into a strong leader, smiled as he watched the ceremony. The boy who had once been a refugee on a dying ship was now helping to rebuild a better galaxy. Sometimes, Nera said to Captain Juan as they watched representatives from 100 worlds work together, those who are pushed away carry exactly what everyone needs to survive.